Dunwoody. These papers are in order. I have checked.
Thank you, Mrs. Fraser.
Yes, Mrs. Fraser.
Drummond, send us telegraph, will you? And see that these are posted right away. I want them for the delivery this afternoon.
Right, Mrs. Fraser.
Just a moment, there's one more. Mr. Dunwoody, you are aware the Saratoga is paying off this afternoon?
Oh, yes, Mrs. Fraser.
Do you have the money?
Yes, Mrs. Fraser.
Have you checked it?
Not yet, Mrs. Fraser.
Then please do so.
Thank you.
Right. I should be back within the hour. Oh, do remember the Good Hope is completing coaling. I want her out on this afternoon flight.
Yes, Mrs. Fraser. Everything is arranged.
She was the most delicious little dolly mop you've ever saw, and I just had 2 pennyworth on the ponies and come up 20 to 1. So I had the cash for a nice little night, I tell you. I got it all worked out beautifully. Eck.
Good morning, all.
I'm afraid Mrs. Fraser's just left, Mr. Spendilow.
That's all right. I'll wait.
Mrs. Fraser is away on a matter of business. If you'll leave your card, Mr. Spendilow, I'll see she is advised of your visit.
Oh, there's no need for formalities with me. I only just called to present my account. There should be more than enough there to cover it ample.
It is not due for another 3 weeks, Mr. Spendilow.
I can give you a discount, very favourable terms.
It is not the practice of this office to discount tradesmen's bills.
Part payment now, a little bit on account. Meet me halfway. A couple of sovereigns to tide me over.
If you come back in 3 weeks, your account will be paid in full, Mr. Spendilow. Yeah. Incidentally, I might mention that your last consignment of oakum left a lot to be desired.
Hand-picked, every shred, and warranted by no less a personage than Her Most Gracious Majesty herself.
Good morning. Mr. Dunwoody about?
It was our impression that a certain amount of inferior material has subsequently been mixed with the original. Yes, Drummond, what is it?
Captain Harvey's arrived, Mr. Dunwoody. He is waiting the pleasure of a few minutes' conversation, sir.
Yes, I shall be with him immediately. This way, if you please, Mr. Spendilow.
No, I'll wait for Miss Elizabeth.
Well, as you wish, but not in here. In the common office, if you please. My apologies for keeping you waiting, Mr. Harvey. I'm simply overwhelmed with work.
Hard taskmaster, is she?
Oh, it's bedlam, Mr. Harvey. Bedlam.
You know what she needs? She needs a tight rein.
Oh, she never relinquished, never for a minute.
Maybe. I won't keep you a moment, Mr. Dunwoody. I've just dropped in to pick up the pay for the Saratoga.
Ah, yes. Well, if you would follow me. Now then.
What's wrong?
2 £5 notes are missing.
You sure?
Of course I'm sure. I have the list from the bank.
Who was in the office?
Mrs. Fraser, several clerks in and out. Mr. Spendilow.
Then we must organise a personal search.
Oh, not Mr. Spendilow.
Everybody.
I'm afraid I can't wait any longer, old chap.
Oh, right, Mr. Spendilow.
Wonder if you'd oblige us, sir?
What for?
There's a slight contretemps in the office. There's some money missing. One of the clerks, we think. Perhaps you'd oblige us by calling a constable on the way out.
Oh, certainly. You can rely upon me. Discretion's my watchword.
And I'm sure you won't object. It's merely a formality.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Stop that. Here. Those are mine.
That's my mark.
Arrested. Uncle Percy Spendilow.
As a common thief, no less. Oh, that idiot Harvey. He takes far too much responsibility upon himself.
Elizabeth, you're allowing your tongue to run away with you as usual. Now, tell us exactly what's happened.
I've told you.
Well, so far, all you've told us is that Uncle Percy is to be arraigned before a magistrate and charged with a felony.
Ah, well, I had it on very good authority that he was caught red-handed stealing from Fraser's office.
Caught with his fingers in the till, I'll be bound. Well, in a manner of speaking. Well, remember how we used to steal sugar?
You mean you used to steal sugar and Uncle Percy took the blame?
Oh, do stop calling him Uncle. Mr. Spendilow is not and never was related.
He used to help out in the shop when Father was alive. We always called him Uncle.
Used to slip biscuits into my pocket just before I went to school.
Stolen biscuits, and I used to get the blame. I should point out, Sarah, that when Father died, Uncle Percy Spendilow went into business on his own. He opened a marine shop of sorts. Lord, the rubbish that man bought and sold. And he'd no head for business, none whatsoever.
Now, tell us exactly the nature of the charge.
Stealing £10 from our petty cash.
And on what evidence?
The money was found in his pocket.
Was it identified?
Yes, Mr. Dunwoody marked the notes with his private mark.
I would describe that evidence as quite conclusive.
It looks bad.
Yes, well, that's where you might help, Robert.
Me?
Well, you could use your influence as a member of Parliament.
Do you mean to thwart the course of justice? Is that what you were suggesting?
Well, you have made speeches enough on the subject of penal reform. Now is your opportunity to prove that you mean what you say.
Think of yourself as a champion of the oppressed.
I have never supported any man or woman who has been legally and no doubt properly condemned for his crimes.
At the moment, the prisons are nothing more than a training ground for criminals.
I am toward the uniform application of isolation, the rule of silence, with the crank and the treadmill as a condign punishment for those who break the rules.
I quite agree.
Oh, do save your speeches for the hustings. Now, tell us precisely, when is he to appear before the magistrate?
After luncheon tomorrow.
Oh, well, might still be time.
To do what?
Subvert the ends of justice. And I'd like to put your name forward for a seat on the board. The post carries with it a small honorarium, plus a number of preferential shares.
And what would be expected from me in return for this singular honor?
Well, we appreciate that magistrates are busy people. Your name would be recompense enough.
Waiter, I'll take cheese and coffee. Mr. Onedin, I have listened with as much patience as I can muster to an overlong dissertation upon your family fortunes. And although appreciative of your proposal, I am mindful that time is passing. I have a rather heavy list of cases before me this afternoon. I would be obliged if you'd come to the point.
Oh, I thought I had.
Mr. Onedin, your reputation is well known. You will therefore forgive me for questioning your motives in extending so lucrative an inducement. Under what circumstances would I be expected to fulfill my obligations to your board?
Oh, well, we might call upon your knowledge of the law from time to time, that is all.
Thank you. No, I take neither tobacco nor alcohol. But indulge yourself if you so wish.
Well, as a matter of fact, a little matter has arisen upon which I would appreciate your advice. An acquaintance of ours, a man in a small way of business, finds himself in the unfortunate position of being accused, quite wrongly, of theft.
Of what?
Of money.
A felony. Once charged, he must plead.
Aye, well, that is the problem. The evidence appears to point to his guilt.
That's no problem, Mr. Onedin. If such is proved to be the case, the man will be sent to prison.
He's not a young man.
When does he appear?
This afternoon.
Before me. I think you have said enough, Mr. Onedin. I shall forego both coffee and your offer of an appointment. I have no knowledge of your involvement in all this, and I have no wish to know. Let me only remind you, sir, that the penalties for attempting to influence one of Her Majesty's justices are severe. Severe indeed, sir. I bid you good day.
There's a stretch of coast round about here a ways. Sand, swamp, scrub, and a bit of timber. Now, nasty seas coming in, heavy swell, shallow water, no anchorages. But this is the bay I told you about. Now, it's narrow at the neck, and it opens out just like a bottle. Now, once inside, a ship could be as snug as a bug in a rug.
And how far off is the river?
Well, it makes a bend about here, you see. It comes no nearer than about 20 miles. I suppose you could cut a canal. The land in between is scrubbed with a few salt flats.
Salt?
I thought you'd be interested in that, so we brought a cask or two as samples. Now then, this is the inlet in detail. I drew it up myself. I took a jolly boat and I sounded every foot of it. Now, to seaward, you've got very deep water, and inside 5 or 6 fathoms and a fair stretch of beach to the north. And there's no one there except a few bow and arrow savages. And there's enough timber to build a mile of jetties.
We'll do it, eh? We'll build a port where there was no port before. We'll make the whole of that coast ours, eh? We'll call it Port Baines, eh?
Port Baines. I'll drink to that, by God, Sir. Port Baines.
Now, what's up with you?
Uncle Percy.
What was the outcome?
Guilty. He was sentenced to 6 months.
On your feet, 3, 4, 1. Supper. For the first 3 days, you're on bread and water and your sleep's hard. Too much flesh, hands like a lady. We'll soon tone you up, my lad. You can start with 1,000 turns of the crank before you get your head down. I told you, 3, 4, 1. 1,000 turns of the crank afore you get your head down. If I catches you napping again, it'll be 2,000.
Two, 3.
Don't know. You know, she's late again.
Elizabeth really has transformed this room.
I mean, it's my duty as principal speaker to be there on time. I'd swear Elizabeth dilly-dallies deliberately.
We lack a decent-sized withdrawing room.
All the important people will be there, my Lord and Mayor, my Lord Derby, the most influential members of the Chamber of Commerce.
We need a new address.
You what?
It's time we moved to a new house.
A new house? What's wrong with the one we've got?
Oh, how can I be expected to entertain persons of quality in such cramped quarters?
My dear, you make an admirable hostess. Everybody comments on it.
The kitchen's far too small. I can't keep a decent cook. Now compare our circumstances in the style to which Elizabeth lives.
Elizabeth's got money to burn, I haven't.
I did have in mind the Croxteth Road area.
The Croxteth Road? Have you taken leave of your senses? Do you realise, I mean, it's full of ship owners and cotton brokers and...
Exactly. And a Member of Parliament is required to have a good address.
Can't afford it.
Oh, Robert. If Jane's going to use company money in order to buy a port, then you can have your share to buy a new house.
That's all very well.
No, exactly. You are a company director.
I know I'm a company director.
So tax James with it, and if there is any profit, then you should have your share.
I'm ready. Have I kept you waiting?
Good grief, girl. We're only going to a dinner, not a rout.
Oh, you think it too extravagant? Oh, well, perhaps I should change.
No, it'll do very well. Very well. Come on, we haven't got all night.
Oh, hello, Amy.
Hello, Percy. Are they treating you well?
Oh, it's hard, I'll not deny, but they're fair. They're very fair.
Are you getting enough to eat?
Oh, yes, the food's regular and wholesome. 3 meals a day. And wholesome. I've lost a bit of weight. You'll not know me when I come out.
Percy, your hands.
Yes, I know. I'm not used to the manual labour yet, but I'll harden up. I promise you.
Is there anything I can bring?
No, nothing at all. It's not allowed.
Oh, Percy, how could you bring us to this?
I'm innocent, Amy.
Can't hold my head up in public. And the landlord's threatening eviction. I don't know what to do, Percy. It'll be the poorhouse, I know it will.
Speak to Miss Elizabeth.
Who?
Mrs. Fraser. She'll stand by.
Oh, no, I wouldn't dare. She's too high and mighty. Anyway, what's it put you in here, them Frasers?
No. The Onedins has always been very, very good to me. Go and see her, Amy. Miss Elizabeth will help you. You'll see.
I don't know what's to become of me. And the children. We shall starve. We shall all starve.
Time's up, 341.
Speak to Miss Elizabeth, Amy.
Silence.
Remember. Yes, Mr. Crane.
Morning, Robert. What brings you here so early?
I'm here to ascertain the present state of our company's finances, and I am not leaving here until I have a full and satisfactory explanation.
Oh, help yourself. You'll find them all over there.
Thank you.
Why? Do you think I've had my fingers in the till like Uncle Percy?
That's uncalled for. Uncle Percy is innocent, as you perfectly well know.
Uncle Percy is and always has been a feckless ne'er-do-well. Why this sudden interest in our finances?
Sarah and I have decided upon a change of address.
Oh!
It is therefore my intention to invest in a choice property in a better class residential area.
Oh, Robert, you can buy a dozen houses if you've a mind to. Just don't bother me with your petty little problems.
Petty problems? And where do you think the money's going to come from, eh? Eh? James, what's the matter?
Charlotte. She's got diphtheria.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's sleeping now. The doctor thinks she might have a chance. He put the tube in her throat. She was choking. It was dreadful, dreadful.
How long has this been?
4 days. She was taken poorly.
4 days?
I didn't know what it was at first. She seemed a bit pale and rather cranky. I took her temperature. It was up, but not alarmingly so. I put her to bed and gave her a little broth. I thought it no more than a childish ailment. And then last night, well, unfortunately, I had taken to sleeping in her room. She had difficulty in breathing. Naturally, I called the doctor immediately.
Ah, well, I better see the nurse.
There is no nurse. I can do everything that's necessary.
4 days? You can't have slept a wink.
I assure you I can manage.
No, you cannot manage. Miss Gaunt, you must learn to delegate responsibility now. Who does the cooking, the cleaning?
Well, I'd do it. It's only a small house.
Yes, well, I hired you as a governess, not a skivvy. I want you to hire a cook and a housemaid. And 2 nurses to work turn and turn about,
Yes, Mr. Onedin.
I know you meant well. But we must think of what's best for Charlotte. I want a couple of nightingale nurses, not your gin-soaked drabs.
What will you do?
I shall wait here.
Whoa, that was an excellent dinner. By heck, Elizabeth, you did us proud. Them oyster patties. Oh, you ought to give Sarah the recipe.
Oh, I doubt my cook would part with it.
Oh?
Do help yourself to brandy, Robert, and smoke if you wish.
Oh, aye.
I trust you don't intend to appear in public in that garment, Elizabeth. It is, well, it's a little risky.
It is the very latest London fashion, Sarah. Of course, not everyone can wear it.
Aye, well, yes, very nice. And what do you think of James' latest project?
It does hold certain promise.
You can't be serious.
Well, the country of Brazil does have enormous potential, Robert.
Beg pardon, madam,
Yes, what is it, Alice?
but there's a person
A person.
wishing to speak to you, insisting like.
Well, what sort of a person?
Well, female sort of a person, mum. Give the name Spendilow.
Spendilow? Mrs. Spendilow?
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Very well, Alice. Show the person in, will you? Mrs. Spendilow, I had quite forgotten.
So had I.
Poor Uncle Percy.
Oh, do stop calling that creature uncle. He was guilty. The evidence quite conclusive.
Well, I don't know. Well, for some time past, Mr. Dunwoody has been missing small amounts from our petty cash.
Why ever didn't you say so in court? That could have cleared him.
Well, no, you see, Uncle Percy is a frequent visitor.
Oh.
The person, madam.
Oh, do come in, Mrs. Spendilow. Robert, a chair for the lady, if you
Aye,
please.
aye, thank you, Alice.
Do sit down. Would you care to take a little something, Mrs. Spendilow?
Oh, drop a gin, if you please. And thank you, ma'am. I don't usually touch spirits, except in a necessity, but just now I'm so frightened. Oh, thank you kindly, sir. Poor Spendilow, he's suffering pitiful. Prisons is dreadful hard places.
They're meant to be dreadful places, Mrs. Spendilow.
I don't know what's to be done. Business is falling off. With the police poking and prying, customers is shy, very shy.
There's no need for anyone engaged in honest trade to be afraid of the police.
I'm sure we all sympathise with your predicament, Mrs. Spendilow.
Go and speak to Miss Elizabeth. If you'll excuse the liberty, ma'am. Those were Spendilow's very words. Miss Elizabeth will help.
Well, I'm sure I don't know what I can do to help.
Oh, you have been kind, ma'am, more than kind. Taking a bale or two of oakum off our hands from time to time, and Mr. Robert buying casks of tallow. And Mr. James letting us have first pick a surplus store, spoiled, of course, but at very favourable prices. Oh, yes, you have all been most kind over the years, but I'm lost without Spendilow, and that's a fact I'll not deny.
Well, I'm sure we'll all do everything we can to... Won't we, Robert?
What? Oh, yes, yes. We won't leave no stone unturned.
My brother has considerable influence in the field of prison reform.
Oh, thank you, sir, thank you.
Oh, well, I can't promise anything, mind you. I can't promise anything. But I'll do my best. I could have a word with the prison governor. Aye, I'll do that. Alice! Come in here, will you? Now, I think it's time you were away off home now. Now, don't worry about anything. You leave everything to us. We'll do all we can.
Just one moment, Mrs. Spendilow. Here's a little something just to tide you over.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. You're too generous.
I'm too generous.
Am I to understand that you two have been supporting those creatures by buying their rubbishy stocks?
Well, only the occasional oddment. I mean, I looked upon it as an act of charity.
Well, me too. But trust James to turn a penny even from an act of philanthropy. We have been buying James's cast-off rubbish.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Pick him up, Mr. Aykroyd. Pick him up.
1, 2. 3. 1, 2.
What on earth are you doing here?
How's Charlotte?
Past the crisis, thank God.
Amen to that. What arrangements have you made for her?
I left Miss Gaunt in charge. Seemed to be getting in her way. Quite lost her patience with me. Bustled me out of the house. Remarkable woman, that, you know. Remarkable. Oh. Right, then. What seems to be the trouble?
Well, it's these. These accounts. I just can't make head nor tail of your accounting. I mean, you move the monies from this company's account to another over here, and then back again. I mean, it's just a maze of figures.
How much do you reckon that you're worth now, Robert, eh?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, when we started this company, all I had was the Charlotte Roads, and you put up £15 and just squealed like a pig.
Of course I squealed like a pig, but I coughed up and you went ahead and formed a £100 company.
Aye, and how much do you reckon that your 15% is worth now?
15% of what?
Close on £1.25 million.
15 over past. That's well over £180,000.
Not a bad return on £15, is it, eh?
100. I can afford to buy a palace.
Oh, you can you?
Yes, I've just got to sell some of these shares.
Not unless I agree. No, I own 70% shares. You sell nothing without my say-so.
I see. So I've got to whistle for my money, is that it? Well, no, James, not this time you don't. Oh, no. I am determined to buy that house, and the cost of it is going through the company's books.
Oh, aye.
Yes. Otherwise, that Brazilian venture of yours doesn't go through without my say-so, because I shall refuse to put my name to another document.
Where do you expect to find this palace?
Croxteth Road.
It will be a palace.
Well, the company can afford it.
True. Ah, it sounds like a good enough investment. Very well. Company will foot the bill.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to buy?
Not for the moment, James. Good night.
I'll have to wait in earshot. Ma'am, it's my bounden duty.
Of course, I quite understand. Uncle Percy!
I'm done for, Miss Elizabeth.
What have you been doing to him?
It's the effects of prison, ma'am. It affects many of them like that.
Uncle Percy, did you steal that money?
I've stolen nothing, Miss Elizabeth.
Very well, I believe you. But if you didn't, then someone else did. Who, Uncle Percy? Who else had the opportunity?
I don't know.
Well, think, Uncle Percy. Think who else was present.
I can't remember, Miss Elizabeth.
Well, there was Mr. Dunwoody and Mr. Harvey.
No, Mr. Harvey was in the Common Office Dunwoody went to speak to him, and I followed in, and there was a lot of coming and going. The office was very busy, and I think there was a clerk or someone or other. Oh, I don't know. I can't remember rightly.
One of my clerks. Which one?
I don't know. I didn't take no particular notice. And anyway, one clerk's much like another, isn't he?
Well, don't give up hope, Uncle Percy. We shall find the villain.
I shan't last 6 months, Miss Elizabeth. I shan't last.
Thank you again for your kindness, Mr. Kringle. This is for your trouble.
I shouldn't really, ma'am.
Are you married, Mr. Kringle?
I have that good fortune, ma'am.
She must indeed be a most fortunate lady. Are there any children of your union?
2. A fine lad, and the prettiest young girl you ever saw.
One for the lad, one for the girl.
3 sovereigns?
And now you have 4. This one for Mr. Spindelow.
Oh, no, I couldn't, ma'am. The prisoners is not allowed money.
Oh, of course not, and quite rightly so. But it could go towards a little comfort.
All in my power, ma'am.
Good. Well, I shall be back in a day or 2. We may resume our conversation then.
I look forward to that pleasure, ma'am.
The company will be called the Onedin Brazil Company. Has a good ring to it, don't you think?
Sounds not only respectable, but profitable as well, sir.
Well, that's what it certainly will be. Here, how'd you fancy your name going down on the prospectus?
Prospectus? What's that, sir?
Well, that's what I'm drafting now. Invitation to the public to buy shares, eh? Captain Baines, discoverer of Port Baines. Oh, of course your name shall go down.
Well, if you think so, sir.
Right. Now, how many shares shall I put you down for? 100?
Shares? Well, I don't know about that.
Well, same as having shares in a ship. Plenty of captains have that.
Oh, but begging your pardon, sir, this is different. I mean, this ain't no ship. This is a company.
Could make you a lot of money.
Oh, no. I don't like touching things I don't understand. Anyways, I can't afford it.
Well, I'll dock it off your pay.
No, sir. Of course. It'd be different if this was a ship.
Well, it's not a ship. Now, do you want the shares or don't you?
Oh, well, put like that, sir, thank you, but no.
Oh. Well, it's a pity. Your name would have looked good on that prospectus. Tell you what, I'll put you down for 10.
Oh, but, sir,
As a gift. You can pay him back next year.
What is supper? I've not much in the way of an appetite these nights. Sit you down, 341. Sit you down. Fine lady, that Mrs. Fraser. Got a powder face she has.
Oh?
In you, 341. In you. So don't you go letting her down now, nor me neither. I want you looking spruce and in fine fettle next time she comes. Do you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Kringle.
Right, sup up.
Yes, Mr. Kringle.
Miscarriages of justice have occasionally been known to happen, the law being what it is. And when they does, you'll find that some of us have sympathetic natures. Now, I've been considering your case most carefully. I've come to the conclusion that you may be regarded as a trustworthy inmate of these confines. You know what I mean, 341?
No, Mr. Kringle.
Trustworthy duties is the meaning. Fetching and carrying from the kitchen, doling out victuals, that sort of duty is my meaning. Start tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Kringle.
I trust you will acquaint the lady with your good fortune on the occasion of her next visit.
Yes, of course, Mr. Kringle.
You'll be excused further heavy exercise until further notice. So there's no need to trouble yourself with a crank. Good night, 341.
Good night, Mr. Kringle.
You wish to retain your position here, Mr. Dunwoody?
Oh, yes, indeed, ma'am.
Then may I suggest you start to exercise your mind? Now then, when Mrs. Spindelow was in this office, who else was present?
Oh, dear, I just cannot recollect.
Think, Mr. Dunwoody, think.
Steady as a rock.
Pile and tricks. I came here to watch the fancy, not to see you supping like heathen dromedary.
You having a bet?
Well, now, I thought to venture $1 on Tiny Tim here.
He's too old and he's too slow. My money's on Wild Harry.
Well, now, he's too young and too eager.
All right, I'll give you 3 to 1. In guineas.
Ah, don't be a fool.
5 to 1.
I'll be quiet.
I'll take that, mister.
This is a private conversation.
Hey, what's the matter with you? You're spoiling for trouble.
Well, the fact of the matter is I'm out of favour. I was doing all right for myself, and she's a lovely handful, but headstrong. Headstrong and willful.
Mind back 2 minutes,
She's going to be an almighty willful woman.
Mind back in 2 minutes.
A widow woman. Lovely as sin and wealthy as Croesus. What more could a man ask?
Who are you talking about?
Trimmer craft as I ever saw. Full-rigged and pretty as a painted picture.
And just who are you speaking about?
She gave me such a roasting over that business about the stolen money.
Are you talking about Miss Elizabeth?
Oh, yes.
Now, you take that back, because I'll throw you through that window.
Thank you.
We haven't finished our business yet.
Well, if they start a book, I'll have 2 pennies on the fat fella. Though I must say, Mark, if I've got a choice, I'd rather have cockfighting.
That's it, that's the one, not that. It was one of your clerks, Drummond. I recognised him immediately.
It doesn't prove anything.
But he was in the office at the time, asked Woody.
Dunwoody can't remember.
But I can.
Yes, a little late in the day.
Well, he was just a clerk going about his business. But any clerk who can afford a half-a-crown entrance fee and bet the way he was betting is living beyond his means.
Betting heavily?
In shillings and doubling up, so Baines says. He followed him up. I stayed below and I talked to the landlord. He says that Drummond's a regular.
Yes, but in order to obtain Mr. Spindelow's release, we require proof.
Well, a man who will steal once will steal again. Only this time, we make it easy for him.
Good night, Charlie.
Oh, not now, Mr. Harvey. I cannot take the responsibility. The banks are closed.
Don't overdo it. Well, it still needs to be checked. It's a lot of money. I'll speak to Mrs. Fraser about it.
Where have you been?
Well, I was waiting for the first clerk to come out. We want him to feel safe, don't we?
Is the money all accounted for?
Every penny.
Right then.
Good night, Mrs. Fraser.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. Dunwoody.
Good night, Mr. Harvey. Oh, Drummond?
Yes, Mr. Dunwoody?
Would you be so good as to take this note to Mrs. Fraser?
Oh, yes, of course. From Mr. Dunwoody, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, Drummond. Has Mr. Harvey left?
Oh, yes, Mum, just this minute. Do you want me to run after him?
Oh, no, thank you. I know where to find him. I was just leaving myself, but, I take it you are a trustworthy young man?
Oh, yes, Mum, of course. Upon me heart.
Good. Then would you oblige me by counting this loose cash?
Oh, yes, certainly, Mum.
And do remember to record each number separately.
Oh, yes, of course.
Otherwise, we shall never trace any discrepancy.
No, leave it to me, Mum. Good night, Mrs. Fraser.
Good night. Good night, Mr. Dunwoody.
Good night, Mrs. Fraser.
I've checked the money, Mr. Dunwoody.
Good evening, Drummond. You off to back your fancy again?
Oh, Cap...
Would you mind coming in here a minute, please? Just a minute, please.
I don't understand.
Thank you. There's nothing to be alarmed about. Just want to know how good you are at counting money. Will you sit down, please?
Well, it's all there, every penny. If you don't believe me, check it for yourself.
I don't have to. Mr. Dunwoody.
This, I take it, is a list of the numbers.
It's all there. Check it and see. Afterwards, I shall expect an apology.
A £5 note is missing. That is the number.
Let's have it, son.
She's asleep.
You've both been sleeping for 3 hours. I brought you supper.
3 hours, eh? She's certainly on the mend.
I know. That's why I've packed off those 2 nurses.
You don't
Well, there's no good in keeping a dog and barking yourselves. I can take over from now.
rabbit pie, eh?
While you're eating up, I'll go and get a hansom.
Oh?
Well, you have got a business to attend to, and a good night's sleep is what you need.
I think you enjoy bossing me around, don't you?
Well, someone's...
Huh?
Nothing.
Our new house will have a separate games room. It'll be much more commodious than yours, Elizabeth.
Oh, yes, but older property does have more character, don't you think?
Well, we haven't bought the house yet. I mean, we've looked over 1 or 2 possibilities, but no decision has been taken as yet. No decision.
We'll have the corner side. I've quite made up my mind about that.
Do you know what they're asking for a house? £950. For a house, mind you, a house.
Right, everybody.
James,
Carriages at the door.
James, how is Charlotte?
Oh, showing great improvement. Mind you, we may only stay a few minutes. Mustn't tax her strength.
Oh, I trust there's no longer any danger of infection, James. We do have Samuel to think
No
of.
danger whatsoever. Mind you, her throat's still swollen, so she has to stay to her bed, you know, for the next few weeks.
Beg pardon, madam. Yes, Alice, what is it?
There's 2 persons here.
Well, which 2 persons?
I hope that we didn't catch you, ladies and gentlemen, on the up. I merely wanted to tender my most extreme gratitude. We're obligated, highly obligated, aren't we, Amy?
Oh, you've all been most kind.
Yes, well, we never doubted your innocence for one moment. Did we, James?
Well, not entirely.
What do you mean by that?
Well, always seemed odd to me that a clerk familiar with office procedure should help himself to cash that had already been counted.
But it was Drummond. We know it was Drummond.
Oh, I've no doubt that your clerk pilfered a shilling here and a shilling there, but it wasn't until you laid that trap that he was tempted to take a banknote. It was you, wasn't it, Percy?
I only took what was mine by rights.
Percy! You will never set foot in my office again.
And after me speaking to the present governor on his behalf.
I never had any doubt. Never for a moment.
Yes. Well, what are you going to do with yourself now, Percy?
Well, I suppose I shall try and get started again, Mr. Onedin. It's all right for the rich, you know. They've got resources. I only took what was mine by rights. I was entitled. Yes, entitled.
Right, everybody. Let's not keep Charlotte waiting.